The Lorna M. Johnson Global Institute is rooted in equality and justice. We are committed to exploring innovative, non-traditional modalities and approaches to positively shift cultural norms relating to bias, hate, and disparities. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the fierce urgency of this moment, a great moment for healing communications and bridging the divides within race, culture, faith, media, and politics. We must be the change we seek. Let's follow the compass of love for one another. Open our hearts and inspire the best in each of us, eliminating the virus of bigotry and confusion. Responding to the call of our moral compass for a more perfect union, I ask each and every one of you to join me in bridging the divide by sharing your bridge building ideas through the Lorna M. Johnson Global Institute Town Hall. The future is in our hands. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the globe. Welcome to the Lorna M. Johnson Global Institute Virtual Town Hall. Thank you for tuning in. You know what to do. Host a Facebook party, share with family and friends, and let us know your comments in the comment section. And we may even have a few questions for you today. We have decided to continue Bridge the Divide this week instead of Girl Tribe because of the fast approaching November 3rd final day for voting. So we wanted to make sure you have all the information that you're going to need. We're less than 2 weeks away. Of course, many states started voting already. So if your state already started voting, I hope you are going to be one of the early voters. We have over 40 million people that have already voted. Your vote is important. If you don't believe it, look around and see how much energy and resources are being invested in suppressing your vote. Your vote is your most precious commodity, and this could be the most consequential election of our lifetime. Across the country and the globe, we have the pandemic of COVID-19, unequal justice, and economic inequity. Your vote gives you the power to make the demand from our government and determines everything that happens in our nation, state, and communities. Today, we have some amazing guests with us. And to start us off, we're going to go straight to the NFL Super Bowl champion, George Stark. George Stark. George is known for his offensive lineman moves with the Washington Redskins. George Stark is one of the greatest players in the Redskins' history and helped his team to 3 Super Bowls, won the Super Bowl ring in 1983. Following his retirement, Stark launched a career in broadcasting, but it was the alarming spike in youth violence that caused him to create the Excel Institute training at-risk youth with life skills, counseling, and vocational training. After graduating over 500 students, Stark retired and started Stark Communications, a firm providing communication, public relations, and marketing services to corporate clients. George Stark is married to my friend Petra, a former White House lawyer and a friend of my Girl Tribe family, and their son is destined to be one of the greatest tennis players of all times. Remember, you heard it here first. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend George.
Hi, Lorna.
George. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you today?
I'm great. Good to be seen. Whatever I can do, whenever you're at some place, I know you're in the right place. So if I'm with you, I know we're both in the right place.
Try to be, George. It's so good to see you. You know, there's so much going on right now where celebrity and athletes intersect with politics. Let's look at athletes who have put their careers on the line since 1968, like Tommy Smith, John Carlos, and Kaepernick. We spoke a little bit about some things with the NFL and Kaepernick, and I think you mentioned that the NFL did already make an apology to Kaepernick. But what do you think of the NFL response to Black Lives Matter now? Is it too little, too late? What is your thought?
I think That's a good question. The commissioner, for sure, made a decision to reverse their position on the Black Lives Matter issue and the Kaepernick thing. And they came out wholeheartedly in his favor and apologized to him this year. And where, you know, teams were not allowed necessarily to kneel during the anthem last year, and a lot of teams did regardless. This year, you know, that the commissioner and the NFL have encouraged players who feel that they should kneel to kneel. So the NFL clearly has reversed course and embraced the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, they just have.
Well, that's great. You know, it's great that people are coming on board, and I just hope that we're coming and we're really seeing the light in coming on and not just doing it as a gesture. Now let's talk about another hot topic of Ice Cube and 50 Cent and their impact on voters. Recently, Ice Cube made a statement about fighting for our rights as Black people, indicating that we go with the highest bidder for the representation in the White House. Let's listen to some of what he said.
I don't trust none of them. So putting our hopes and dreams behind any of them just don't work. You know, the Democrats, I believe they owe us. Will they do right by us at the end of the day? Who knows? You know, I think the plan they have is you know, they're doing a lot when it comes to safety and police, but you know, that dough is thin. Everybody money is thin. I mean, we're not gonna get no respect in this country without the cash. We ain't gonna get no respect in this country without having money in our community. It just ain't gonna happen. Everybody can be mad at me, pissed off at me. You know, I don't give, hey, y'all know what it is. I'm trying to get to the truth. I ain't about to be part of nobody program. Ain't nobody gonna, and if y'all don't want to hear the truth, then that's your, that's kind of a personal problem.
So George, what are your thoughts on Ice Cube remarks? Do you believe that celebrities with platform like his impact voter in a disruptive and counterproductive manner?
You know, I think, I don't know what his background is. I don't know what 50 Cent's background is. You know, you have a lot of rappers that grew up in middle-class families that pretend that they're gangsters. So a lot of that stuff is phony to begin with. But separate from that, it's clear that the Black community needs a new path forward. We all get that. So to say, well, we need money in the Black community, well, we don't necessarily need money. We need a plan. And so if you don't have a plan, it's all BS. You know, throwing money in the community doesn't mean anything. How would you do that? So as you know, Lorna, I built a program for troubled kids, and I spent a long time raising a lot of money, and I built a program, for kids who grew up without moms and dads, and and were committing crimes that really were issues, not so much of crime, but really of jobs, that they couldn't read, they couldn't write, the parents are smoking crack. If you got a kid and your parents are all smoking crack back in the crack days, you don't go to school. So all of a sudden you're 18 years old, you got 3 different kids by 3 different girls, and one of those girls tells you to go out and get some diapers, and you can't read and you can't write, and you don't have a job, so you stick somebody up. So I don't look at that as a crime issue. I think that's a job issue, which goes back to education, which goes back to family. So, I think it's a broader issue. Do we need help in the community? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's funny you should bring this up and ask me on this show, because I've been asked by the District of Columbia to bring back my efforts in the community to help young people, because while I don't think there's a crack epidemic going on right now, there clearly are a lot of lost young people that we have to figure out a way to bring them back in, or at least going forward, figure out a way for them to go forward. Otherwise, we're stuck with, I don't want, I'm not sure how political you want me to get, but
No,
I mean, there are issues
that's
of
great.
racism
You're
with the
definitely on
police
the right
for
track.
sure.
But we want to, this conversation is very exciting, and we also have some other guests that we
Yeah,
want to
so I don't
bring
want
on
to take up all the
to
time.
make it.
I can,
No. You're still in
I
it. We're
can
going to
talk
keep
about
you
this for
on.
2 hours.
We're going to continue this conversation, but I want to bring in an expert on in Jane Elliott. So let's bring on Jane. Jane Elliott. Jane is considered the forerunner of diversity training. With the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise being the basis of her work, Jane Elliott has trained corporate giants such as General Electric, Exxon, AT&T, IBM, as well as lecturers to the FBI, IRS, U.S. Navy, and the U.S. Department of Education. Her one-size-fits-all, strict tone and approach to anti-racist education has no tolerance to talk of color blindness or coding of so-called white fragility. Jane only wants people to understand how it feels to be mistreated based on meaningless standards. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Jane Elliott. Hi, Jane. How are you?
Well, you either get Jane Elliott or an expert. You don't get both. I am not an expert on anything. An expert is somebody who's 50 miles from home, and I'm sitting in my living room. So I'm not an expert. So let's get real here.
Okay, but you are the pro, you're the expert, you're the one with the knowledge of all of you're just so amazing. Everybody loves you, young, old, everybody just wants to hear from you. And we know that you are right to the point. And so I'm going to ask you, do you think Ice Cube is being used by this administration to earn or to suppress the black votes? And 50
Of
Cent,
course he's
50
being,
Cent, he has
of course,
thrown
of
himself
course.
into the picture also. What are your thoughts on these guys?
Of course, he's being used, and why not? We've used black people for years. Some of them get used to it, and some of them, like Ice-T and Killer Mike, refuse to be used and
Ice
instead do
Cube,
things
Ice
like
Cube.
opening.
Oh, Ice
Yeah,
T. Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
I
you
know who
got
you're
it.
talking about.
Okay, good.
I'm talking about T.I. Harris and Killer Mike. And those two men aren't being used. They are using their natural intelligence, of which they have huge amounts, to make a difference for the black community. They are not being used. They are using their intelligence, and that's what Ice Cube is kind of missing out on. He needs to realize that you can make a difference as a black man, but first you have to stop thinking that white people know it all or that you have to be used by them to be successful.
Thank you, Jane. That is just so awesome. I want to bring everybody into this conversation. So we're going to move on to, we have Bill Duke, who also have a lot in common. He's been an actor, film director, producer, and has done some work with youth like George has done. So let's bring Bill Duke in, please. Bill Duke, actor, film director, producer, and screenwriter, is known for his work in the action and crime drama genre and has directed television and film extensively. And though his work is mostly known in the entertainment industry, he's also a strong advocate for social justice and a teacher of his expansive knowledge base. Bill served in the Time Warner Endowed Chair in the Department of Radio, Television, and Film at Howard University and teaches transcendental meditation in Ethiopia under the guidance of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, founder of Duke Foundation. He helps prepare young people for a career in all aspects of film, video, and TV production. Bill is one of the most humble and dignified giant I know. I am humbled and honored to call him friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Duke. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the show. How are you today? No sound from Bill.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
I said, thank you, Your Majesty. I said, thank you, Your
Listen
Majesty.
to that now. It's amazing, Bill. But I must confess that every time I see you, I feel I should be bowing.
I feel the
your
same.
presence is just so amazing and so awesome that I am truly, truly humbled and honored to have you on this virtual town hall talking with my audience today. You've been in the industry, entertainment industry for years, but you've also been an activist and for social justice and human rights, especially for people of color. Is racism playing a role in this election? What do you think? And if so, how?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Yes, I think race, unfortunately, is having a role in this election. Um, you know, I have a great concern, and that is that my concern is that we're being divided as a nation. We're being divided as a world, and we're dividing each other in terms of race, sometimes gender, sometimes class, whatever. But the real problems we face, from global warming to water not being pure enough to drink, to all the things we are leaving for our children. I know we and I spoke before, but that our children are more activist today than ever, and I agree. But I think we have to be more active in terms of leaving our children a better world than we inherited. And I'm not seeing us as doing that. I'm not sure why. I'm not going to blame anybody. I don't know if it's lazy. I don't know if it's not caring. Some people are trying, but it's of a great concern. These issues are not going away. Right. When a friend of mine told me once, he said something that was very interesting. He says, whether you believe in the boogeyman or not, he's going to eat you. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely. We all are concerned. I'm going to bring Jane back into this conversation before we bring Wakenya. And Jane, do you think that people who vote for Trump are racist?
I think people who vote for Trump are ignorant. And they're ignorant because the education system has failed us. If we had been doing a good job in educating children, Mr. Trump wouldn't be where he is today. Make no mistake about that. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duc dus, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. We haven't done that in the schools in this country for about the last 30 years. It's time for us to get busy and stop teaching the lie and start teaching the truth. We've got to teach our children that there's only one race and we are all members of the same race. You and I and everybody that is hearing this, or if anybody still is, anybody who's still listening, is every one of us is our 30th to 50th cousins because we all came from the same place. Now we've got to stop dividing us into black and white and realize that we are all members of the brown color group. We are all shades of brown. Get over this black and white nonsense. White is the color of goodness and purity. Black is the color of evil. And neither of those two colors describes human beings' skin color. We've got to stop believing that 15th century nonsense if we're going to have peace in the 21st century. It's time to get into the 21st century and get over what we believed in the 15th and 16th centuries. If you want to continue to act like you lived in the 15th century, then all the men have to wear knee breeches and powdered wigs, and the women have to go back to wearing skirts down to there and having a baby every 9 months. This is ridiculous. If you're going to be in the 21st century, by the gods of war, act like it.
Oh my goodness. That's why we love you so much, Jane. You're just so right on. Really appreciate that education right there. Listen, I would like to bring George back in. And George, to you,
yes.
Let's see. Do you think that Black people who vote for Trump are demonstrating self-hate?
Oh, I don't think they would think that. I think, you know that I'm from New York, of course, and all of us are not that dissimilar in age from Trump. So all of us that grew up with him, he's always been a con man and a hustler and a not successful businessman. So everybody in New York knows that. He didn't get any votes in New York for president because we all grew up with him. He's always been a con man and sort of a carnival barker. But that his style of bombast seems to resonate with rural white people who live, who just have never seen a guy like that. So he's a hustler, he's a con man, and he plays it well. I don't think, and of course he's a racist for sure, and a white supremacist, and he subtly injects all those tones in his speeches, and he takes advantage of the poorly educated.
Mm-hmm.
To piggyback on our friend who just spoke, he takes advantage of the poorly educated because they believe all of his BS. New Yorkers, we grew up with him, so we don't. But if you're from Iowa and you in the backwoods somewhere, or Arkansas, or Kansas, or Ohio, or I don't know where, that you've never seen a New Yorker, so you can't tell phony from real, and he plays on that. Do I think it's fundamentally racist? Of course it is, because those that he pictures us brown people as the devil and the enemy, and Mexicans and Latinos are rapists, and he somehow is like he's positioned himself to be the last man holding back the hordes of brown and black people from taking over white people's very safe communities and worlds. And I don't think we can get past that without getting rid of him. But as a country, we certainly need to move past that, because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all God's children. And everybody's got issues, whether you're a farmer and you're trying to make it and you're going bankrupt because of the virus, or you're an inner city grocery store in West Harlem and you're going bankrupt because of the virus. I mean, the issues are the same. Trump is just trying to somehow make it that it's not his fault, and that somehow racism plays a part in this. It's just not true. He's just a phony. What can I say about that? I don't know. I don't want to talk too long. That's what I think.
No, that's awesome. Anybody else want to jump in? Bill, did you want to add anything to that, or did you want to jump in? Feel free to jump in, anybody. And
Well, here are my concerns. No matter who wins the election, and I agree with some of the things you're saying, my major concern is that we are divided because we do not listen to each other. And we dig our feet in and we take our positions, but that's not helping the future of our children. There are people I know that have 3 and 4 children and are on the street now, and they're homeless because they lost their jobs. And our Senate and Congress have spent, I don't know how much time now debating over a bill that could help these people. And they go on vacations and their meals are good. But the people that I know are starving. I'm not saying these people that we talk about that are impoverished in the South and Arkansas, etc. I know some of those people, and my family knows some of those people. They're not voting for Donald Trump only because he's bombastic. Some of them are desperate. When I say desperate,
absolutely.
I mean, when I say desperate, I'm not just making up words. They're desperate. And they were desperate under the former Republican administration. They're desperate under the former Democratic administration. And they're desperate now. The question is, how do we address their desperation? It's not, I mean, whatever party, is what plan? I'm not talking about what people say.
What plan?
What plan does either party have to deal with those people's desperation? Because so far, over the past 30 or more years, no one has addressed their desperation.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring Wakenya in because she's on the political strategic side. So I'm gonna bring her in. But so let's bring Wakenya in to join in this conversation. And I think it'll perfect timing for her. What can
Wakenya Clanton. Wakenya is known as the boss lady, builder of opportunity, self-worth, and success. She has been recognized by Empower magazine as a rising political star because she's strategic, long-term thinker whose primary goal is securing the win. Her political savvy and commitment to public service is evident through her work as founder and president of Power of the Pump, a women engagement network. Wakenya has served on the Congressional Black Associates and worked as a legislative correspondent administrator in the U.S. House of Representatives. She continues her activism, encouraging all communities to get out and vote. Wakenya currently serves as a senior advisor to Chairman of the DNC, Tom Perez. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and associate at the DNC, Wakenya.
Hi, partner. How are you? Welcome to the show. How are you today? No, she's mute. She's muted.
Hi, Lorna. How are you?
Hi, I am well. So great to see you and perfect timing. Sure, you listen to the conversation that is going on. I am going to talk a little bit about the young generation. How do we get them involved at this time? How do we encourage them to participate in voting, as well as understanding from the down ballot all the way up? Because even if we have a president, we still need to have somebody to work with. And if we don't get the Senate, we're going to be in the same position, and also the importance of their local government. But before you even go into that, did you want to jump in and chime in? You heard the conversation about, yeah, would you want to chime in on that and then just lead on into?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me this evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this platform with such giants. It's not lost on me who's a part of tonight's conversation. I think there were there were tons of great points that were brought out before me, but I think the one that stood out to me the most were actually the comments of Mr. Dukes when he mentioned the fact that what we're experiencing right now in our country is actually desperation. And you're seeing it in droves, and you're seeing that desperation actually come out and play out on both sides in this political game. Right. So you see lines wrapped around the corner at polling locations. You see lines, wrapped around the corner to get on buses to go to rallies. And I mean, there are stark contrasts in this election at this moment. I think to date, the latest numbers have been more than 20 million Americans have cast their right to vote in this election. And we are still 13 days away from Election Day. And I think what signal that sends to the rest of us in this country is that change is coming. And it is coming whether we like it or not. And it's coming no matter how we like it or not, quite frankly. And I think when you think about just the rise in celebrity of certain people in this election, people who are choosing to lend their voices to the conversation, at least in productive ways, I think for a lot of us who have been ingratiated in this culture around civic participation, and for us it comes second wind. We find it insulting and apprehensive and irresponsible in so many ways. But then there is another group of people who are finding, it's disturbing to me to say even, but they are finding their aha moments in a lot of things that are going on. And I think as Democrats in particular, our job here is to help people see the light that they're looking for, that they're desperately looking for in this election. And you're seeing that more and more. And I'm finding encouragement in seeing and hearing from people who have been on the ground for months, despite being in the pandemic, and really organizing and engaging with folks in a real way.
Absolutely. And of course, I've been there with you. So I agree that, young people are excited more than ever. And I think one of the things that I found, Wakenya, I think over the years, what I find to be different from other marches before, I think people really didn't understand the power in numbers. And, they had plans and they marched and they got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I think our generation today, our young people, they are truly fired up. And they're understanding, they're more educated, they're reading, and they're understanding that it's almost, whoever you have in power, we're going to demand what we want from you. And
right.
What we're here to do is to just give them more information, to educate them, to help them to understand that it's not just the presidential race that is important, but it's also from the school board to the to who puts you in jail and how long you stay in jail. You know, all of those things matter. So I appreciate your voice there. And so I'm gonna also. Did you want to address
Can I
anything
add
with the young
something to that?
people?
Yes, absolutely. I think to your point, Lorna, young people are motivated and energized and leaned in this election in a real way, primarily because they understand that the issues of today are urgent. When you look at the issues of climate change in this country, and you're talking about that, you know, we will virtually be set back, you know, decades within 10 years of all the evolution that we've made in terms of how we take care of our planet. That's an urgent matter. When you think about criminal justice reform in this country and the mistreatment of Black and brown people in this country, not only by police, but by other facets of people as well, that's an urgent issue. And so when you talk about student loan debt, when you talk about, you know, millennials not being able to afford homes, you know, when they've been working for 10 and 15, 20 years, that's an urgent matter. When you talk about tax reform and all these things, these are urgent issues for voters this election cycle. And I think you're going to see, and what you're seeing right now even, is that people who are showing up with a strong sense of urgency because they know what's important, what's at stake, you know, despite the people who are trying to deter us from participating in this election.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, now you talked about the police. One of the police officer who was involved in the Breonna Taylor shooting recently did an interview with ABC and said, it's not a race thing like people want to try to say it is, make it be. It is, you know, he's saying it's something else. So let's talk about that. I think a good point, I'll let you address that, but I also like to bring in Jane to chime in on that also.
There have been marches, there have been protests. What was your feelings watching all that unfold after this?
Mostly frustration, because there was so much disinformation out. This is not relatable to a George Floyd. This is nothing like it. It's not an Ahmaud Arbery. It's nothing like it. It's not a race thing like people want to try to make it to be. It's not. This is a point where we were doing our job, we return fire. This is not us going hunting somebody down. This is not kneeling on a neck. This is nothing like that.
So jump in, guys. I mean, why so many shots? And, you know, why didn't they? So, you know, I'm going to, Wakenya, you chime in quickly, and then I'm going to go to Jane, and whoever wants to, you know, chime in on this, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I would actually love to defer to Ms. Jane Elliott in this case, if she would want to go first in this instance.
I think we would like, we who are in the melanic group would like to deny, and have denied for years, that any of this was happening. What happened in that with George Floyd is people of color have seen that in their communities for years. It's been going on for 235 years. And white people, those what we call white, which aren't white, were willing to deny it until it was right there in their face. And now there's no way they can deny it. And now we're finally realizing what we are doing to other human beings in this country, which we call the land of the free and the home of the brave. You know that I'm one of the free and you are one of the brave, because you put up with this all day, every day, and you keep on keeping on. I think we have refused to admit the fantastic abilities and capabilities that we find in the Black community if we would just look for it. It is absolutely amazing what we have allowed to go down and not take advantage of. If you would just realize that there's only one race, we've got to get over the idea that different faces are different races. They aren't. You and I are all members of the same race, and we've got to educate people to that fact. That man who said this isn't a racist behavior, it wasn't a racist behavior when we shot that woman. It doesn't matter what he meant by what he did. What matters is what happened as a result of what he did. And what he did is a result of how he has been trained to see people of color, period. And we haven't been trained to see them fairly. We haven't been trained to see them right. We are living examples of ignorance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go ahead, Wakenya.
Ms. Elliott hit it dead on the
Right
head.
on the head.
She hit it right on the head. I think to your question, Lorna, when you ask, well, what is it? You know, it's racism in its purest and utter, you know, realized form. You know, as a Southerner, you know, you can't tell me that you would turn fire on someone whose home you broke into. Okay, so when you kick the door in on someone, I don't know who it is. If you didn't announce yourself as the police, if you didn't knock on my door to ask for permission to enter into my property, what do you want me to do? And in fact, here's the thing that really gets me is that you didn't just return fire. You shot to where she was sleeping. You shot to kill. 8 bullets entered her body. And so when we think about that, and we think about the fact that had you not shot into a white neighbor's home, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, you know? And that to me is the most disturbing part of our injustice system, because it's not a justice system, it is an injustice system. We have given people in this country the right to willfully harm other people who they perceive to be a threat. And in our case, as Black Americans, as Black people in this country, it is simply because of the color of our skin.
And the power that a lot of these police have, I mean, and the education background that they have to be able to use these power is just unbelievable. Jane, you mentioned something about education. Do you think that this education, racism, should be taught in schools, and if so, at what age?
It is being taught in schools. We are teaching racism in the schools in this country on a daily basis. We celebrate Columbus Day as if Columbus discovered America. Columbus did not discover this country. Black people came to this country from sub-Saharan Africa between 20,000 and 10,000 years ago. How dare we say that Columbus discovered this country? There's another problem with this. In this country, in our country, we think that America is the 48 contiguous states, Alaska, Hawaii, and the islands off the southeastern coast of the United States. That is not all there is to America. America is everything from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost point of South America. Let's start changing. Let's use a different vocabulary. Let's call this the United States of America, which is what it is, and realize that we are all in the same boat here. And we had better change our behaviors, because this boat is sinking, because we have established a situation in which we are leaking human beings and we are leaking humanity, because we refuse to recognize that more than that in the world right now, only 25% of the people on this earth are classified white. Within 30 years, less than 50% of the people in the United States of America will be classified white. We are going to be outnumbered by those of color. We better get used to it. And that's the reason this fool that is living in the White House right now puts a wall on the border of the southern border of the United States, because he has said we want to keep those brown people out because they reproduce too rapidly. This is blatant racism. And if you don't realize it, what are you thinking of? And why would anyone dream of letting that person return for 4 more years? These are the worst years I've ever seen in this country. And make no mistake about this. I lived through the Great Depression. I lived through the Second World War. I've been a third of my life has been. I'm old enough that a third of the history of the United States is what I've lived through. So what you're seeing in this country today is exactly what I saw in this country from 1933 until 1945, when Hitler was in power in Germany. What is happening in this country is exactly what was happening then. And if you think it isn't, then you need to get Bert Newborn's book, When at Times the Mob is Swayed. And you will find out that this fool has in his bedside table, in a locked drawer, the writings of Adolf Hitler. Of course we are dividing people and conquering people. It is exactly what Hitler did. This is Hitlerian. You don't recognize it because you aren't old enough. I'm old enough to recognize it. I'm older than anybody else in this group. And I know what's going on. I see what's going on. And I know what we have to do. And we have to refuse to deny it and to face the fact that we need to set this thing straight. And we can't set this straight with this man in power, period.
And I am so appreciative of you for saying that, Jane, because it coming from you, it's so much different if it was anybody else, any one of us of color speaking like that. So we are really appreciative of your voice. And I want to go to maybe George, as an athlete, standing up for human rights and justice. What else can they do to be more effective to make change happen? Athletes and entertainers are known to have big egos. How can we educate them? Because Jane is talking about what they're lacking is education. And I spoke to, I think, Kenya earlier, and we talk about the using of this platform in a way that is not necessarily a productive way. that these guys are. So how can we help to train or to educate, or do we need to have a meeting with Jane and maybe and Ice
Yeah.
Cube? Would you be willing to educate?
Right.
George?
Am I on?
Yes, George, you're on. I
Yes.
know I rambled off. I said a lot,
Two
but
quick things.
what else can
Well,
athletes
let me
do? Are
address
they
two
doing
issues.
enough?
First of all, I think it's probably true that my father, for example, was a high school principal, but at night he had two jobs. His night job, he was a corrections officer. And when I was the age of my son today, 9, he would come home and he would say, look, let me give you some advice. Don't ever be very, very, very careful how you interact with the police, because at the end of the day, they have wives and children at home and they're afraid of you. You can be 12 years old. They could have 5 of those guys, they could all have guns, but they're afraid of you, and they're afraid that you'll do something that'll keep them from going home to their families. So you have to be very, 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 in this conversation, I am sure has happened in most Black families, most good fathers have had this conversation with their sons and daughters, that you have to be very careful how you interact with the cops, because, the default would be they shoot you because they're afraid of you, regardless of whether you're 12 years old and you got the kid up in Minnesota had a fake gun and they shot him. It's a fear factor that they have, which goes back to probably the history of our country. I don't know where that comes from, but they're afraid of Black people. And so, the default is shoot, kill, and we'll figure it out later. How you
Exactly.
solve that issue, that I think that's a historic issue in our country, and I'm not sure what the short answer for that is. Separate from that, the issue of kids and parents and how they look at their kids' future. I think for people in this conversation to suggest that an inner city Black woman or man with a couple of kids cares more or less about her kids than an Iowa farmer does about his kids is ridiculous. So Trump, the president, unfortunately for all of us, is sort of like, he's seeding the fire that if he were to help inner city Black kids, that the white kids in Iowa, that their future is somehow in jeopardy, and that the white people in Iowa and Kansas and Oklahoma, that in order to protect their families, they've got to screw our families. And that's a leadership issue. That comes from the top. That comes from Republicans, that comes from Democrats, and it certainly comes from Donald Trump, is he's divided the country into saying, screw those kids, protect your own kids, vote for me. So conversations that suggest that they don't care about their kids is just not true. I know better than that, okay? So
Thank
now
you.
separate. What did you ask me, Lauren?
You did good. You did a good job. You did a good job with it. Would you like to jump in, Bill? I wanted to ask about male masculinity and the attraction to Trump. Do you think that Trump toxic form of masculinity appeals to Black men with large egos, particularly in sports and entertainment? Anybody can jump in and answer that. Bill, did you want to address that at all?
I most certainly hope to God that it doesn't. It's. I want to bring up another point that I'm very concerned about. I have a friend called Janine Salisbury, and I'm concerned about an historical fact of what do you call a critical mass of people who feel they have nothing to lose, and that she has an organization, and she feeds, and this is in New York City, she feeds 3,400 people a week. And there are lines of people around the blocks, Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian, Some of them, let's say a third of them, have been homeless, but the ones that are looking for food now had jobs 6 months ago. So what do you call a critical mass of people who feel they have nothing to lose? There's no wall or gate. Marie Antoinette found that out. And she said, let them eat cake. But guess what? They ate all the cake that she had,
coming through loud?
and then they chopped her head off. I think that we have to wake up.
Yeah. What, Kenya, did you want to add into any of these? Or even, George, I guess you both are pretty much on the same side when it comes to working with kids. Or Jane, feel free to chime in. Did you want to add anything there? You're so powerful.
I'll just go ahead and I'll piggyback off of I actually address your question around toxic masculinity and whether or not I think that is a motivation for people who have platforms who want to side or align themselves with I don't want to say the teachings, but with the mindset of someone like a Donald Trump. I think that toxic.
Number 45, we can say that. It's okay.
Oh, thank
Number
you.
45.
You see how hard it was for it to come out of my mouth?
Yeah.
I think toxic masculinity definitely plays a part in this, and this isn't. But I also think that traditionally in this country, people have been let down. And for folks who have been battered and they don't understand where the abuse is coming from, they are, to use Mr. Duke's words, they're desperate for something that seems more reasonable to them. And in this case, it's super unfortunate that we are debating whether or not, Black men will support Donald Trump or not. But I will tell you the numbers have shown us that there is something appealing about his message, whether it's the way that he marketed it, or the way that he talks about issues or draws contrast for people who are not or who don't have the privilege of time to be super leaned in on the nuances behind issues. It is appealing. But what I've seen and what I am seeing in this election is that there is another underbelly that is brewing, and that is a more sensible people who may have voted for him in 2016, and who may also still be chauvinistic, right? And didn't want to vote for Hillary, but now see opportunity in voting for Vice President Biden.
May I ask a question before we go? Lorna.
Go ahead, George.
So, it's because, Lorna, you called me today. When you asked me about Ice Cube and 50 Cent. I have a grown son, and I have a young son. And my grown son, I remember, I was appalled at the dialogue and the lyrics of hip hop and rap music, because talk about toxic masculinity, that the dogging of women for 20 years in hip hop music, I think is toxic. And I think that the young Black men, since you brought this up, that feels that it's okay to dog women like Trump does and talk bad about women like Trump does, because Lorna asked me, why could there possibly be a connection between young Black men and Donald Trump? It's because I believe it's the rap world and hip hop music, because they're the same. Trump dogs women, and in that culture is the dogging of women, and perhaps that's the connection between Ice Cube and the rest of the rap guys that think Trump is so cool. My thoughts today.
I don't fully disagree with that. I think it's not a zero-sum game as it relates to music. I think it is a culture. I think the culture in this country of toxicity comes from not just Black men seeing it remnant in Trump, but there are men in general who see it.
No doubt.
And women. White women also see that toxic masculinity in Donald Trump and they support it. You saw it last week or so when the white lady in the town hall was just so smitten with the president. And, I mean, there is something attractive about this president to people who otherwise you would think would be sensible, but they are not. Right?
You're right. You're right.
Wait
You're right.
a minute.
You're right.
Go ahead, Jane. I'm going to give Jane the floor, and then I'm going to take it back. Go ahead, Jane.
Wait a minute. You aren't talking about white women here. You are talking about white girls. And when you are talking about Trump, you aren't talking about a black man. You are talking about a black boy who has never developed an adult ego state and never will. This is a child, and he is acting like a child. He is a spoiled brat, and he's acting like one. And the young girls who are flocking after him are just young and foolish. And it's what's going on. And he appeals to them because they appeal to him. And all they have to do is get close to him and have him grab one of them, and all of a sudden he won't be so attractive to them. This is a dangerous man. He is a man who has no moral fiber whatsoever, and he needs to be in another line of work.
Lorna, can I add one thing?
Go ahead. I'm going to let Bill. Go ahead, Bill. I'm going to have to wrap it up in a few. Go ahead.
Most men, their first image of a man is their father. But if there's no father in the household, then they get that image from someplace else. Somehow that has to change.
Yeah.
There has to be fathers in the household. And right now that's a pandemic also.
Yeah,
I see
appreciate.
women black. I see women raising black children by themselves all day, every day, and they do it beautifully because they know how.
They're not men.
They know they know, but no, they may not be men, but they know how to raise girls, and they know how to raise women, and they know how to raise men in their home. They can do it. They have developed coping skills that most of us pale-faced women don't develop because we don't have to. Black women are my heroes. Make no mistake about this. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it, and they're doing it well. And they can do it without males because we have set up a situation in this country where if you raise a black male, the chances are that he isn't going to get old enough to be a father. That's one of the problems. He's either going to be killed or be put in jail. We know that. You know that. 3 strikes and you're out. Didn't put a whole lot of white boys in jail, but a whole lot of black males in jail, and they are still there.
Well, I hope people are listening to us and you're understanding. We're giving you some more perspective on what's going on around you and why it's important for you to vote. So that is the bottom line, is the crux of what we're talking about. And just to piggyback on what Jane is saying, Black women have always been the safeguard for Black communities. And with that, they have a higher skepticism that with everything that we do. And that's why the number 45 administration seemed to be going after Black men versus Black women, because they know that they can't touch Black women. So they find the little holes that they can with the Black men and try to feed on that, and then try to deter them from voting. They're not trying to get them to vote for you because they know that the Black men may not vote for him, but they're trying to suppress our vote. So I want people to understand that your vote is precious. And if you don't vote, somebody else will use it for you. And if it wasn't as precious as it is, then so many people all over the place would not be going out of their way to suppress your vote. So you have to understand what a beautiful and an amazing commodity that you have, that you must use. And in order to do that, you have to go to the poll. And if you don't, shut up. Don't say anything. If you don't vote, just shut up. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so excited. This is such an amazing. I have so many questions. We haven't even gone into half of what we need to talk about, but we're out of time. I got to say thank you, Kenya. Thank you for the perspective that you draw. You're a great addition. Bill, thank you so much. You're always my hero. I always want to bow to you when I see you.
Thank you.
Jane, what a day. I mean, I could just listen to your lesson and just sit and just learn all day long. You are just so amazing. And I know the young people just love you. And Mr. Super Bowl, do you have your ring with you? Did you bring your Super Bowl ring so you could show off? No? Well, too bad. Well, thank you so much. I think this was so amazing and so inspiring. And so thanks to all of you for participating today. But we have to move on, and maybe we just have to do this again. Your
Look,
vote
one
is
thing,
your,
I say one thing because I will be remiss if I do not do this on this.
okay.
One, I want to say thank you to Mr. Bill Dukes. You are a legend. And
Thank you for saying that. Is my hero.
you're definitely a legend. So I thank you for all your contributions. And Miss Jane Elliott, I am actually studying you right now in my diversity and inclusion class at Cornell University. So this is amazing for me. And Mr. Starks, I'm in the Washington D.C. area, so I'm in Redskin country right now. But I wanted to fangirl just a little bit about the history on this call and to say thank you to Lorna for providing me with this amazing opportunity. It is not lost on me. I've been suppressing smiles this whole time because I'm just
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Yukin. And I have to give my hat off to Wakinia. Wakinia is amazing. She has a round table that she's given me the opportunity to speak all over the country. It's called A Seat at the Table. So thank you, Wakinia. I love you. I appreciate you. All of you. You're all my heroes. You're all my friends on the show. It was just so easy and so amazing. So thanks to all of you. Let me get back to work so we can get these people to get out and vote. Vote is your power. Power is in your numbers. That's why it is important, and I'm encouraging all of us, all of you, within my reach of my voice, and I hope within the reach of all these voices that you heard today, that you will get out and vote like your life depends on it, because it does. We have.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you.
Bye, baby.
Bye. Reason for us to vote. COVID-19 is a pandemic that is on us. We have the economic injustice. We have systemic racism. COVID-19 is running rampant and will be considered pre-existing condition. Your healthcare is at risk. People are dying. Over 200,000 people have already died, and over 8 million people have been tested positive for the virus, not counting the super spreaders that are running around asymptomatic that we don't even know about. So I am just begging all my brothers and sisters, please love yourself, wear your mask, wear your mask, wash your hands, social distancing. We have young people that are out there protesting, and they're doing the right thing. We love you. We appreciate what you're doing. And I pray for you each day that you're there. But please protect yourself so that you can be of value to yourself, to your country, and to your family. There is economic disparity. People are living in poverty, as we talked about. Know your local government and vote for your interest. The first line of defense in voting is your local government. From the school to the board, for the school board, to the district attorney's office, to the governor's office, that's a reason for you to vote. As Bill said earlier today, people are starving. Vote. We have 50 Cent that's complaining about he doesn't want to be 20 Cent. We didn't even get into that. Is that a selfish reason? And what is for the common, what about benevolence and all these poor people that go to these concerts that save their last dollars and put it out so that they could go to your concert? And you're talking about not wanting to be 20 cents when the tax rate that you're paying is 3 less than what the average person of $75,000 are paying. And you're paying just a few dollars more, and you're not willing to do that when people are starving to go to your concert. People, you need to vote. Make a decision, you need to vote. From the state attorney making prosecutorial decision to state legislators that are drawing the maps that determine whether or not you are accurately represented, voting matters. Check your registration status. Go to iwillvote.com. Vote early, bring a friend, and please wear your mask. Take care of yourself, especially people of color. You know what to do. You know the deal. Please wear your mask. Again, thanks to all of my guests for tuning in today. I hope that you really did enjoy this Bridging the Divide. It was awesome. It was inspiring. I am just full, and I hope you are too, enough to vote. So remember that when we all vote, what? We all win. Goodbye. Stay tuned. Listen to this last video that we have, and I hope that will inspire you to go to vote. So thank you so much to my audience again. Goodbye, and God bless you all. God bless America.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom: give people light, and they will find the way. give people light. Those are words for our time. Just a week ago yesterday was the third anniversary of the events in Charlottesville. Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis. Remember seeing those Klansmen coming out of fields with lighted torches, veins bulging, spewing the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. Remember the violent clash that ensued between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. You remember what the president said when asked? He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides. It was a wake-up call for us as a country. And for me, a call to action.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love?
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the KKK. I can't believe they still hating blacks today. Cause if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how hate works and operates. Man, you gotta have love if you set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? The love. Where is the love? The love. The love. The love. Where is the love? The love. The love.
So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be. We can choose a path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, more divided, a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take this chance to heal, to reform, to unite, a path of hope and light. This is a life-changing election. This will determine what America is going to look like for a long, long time.
Yes, it
Character is on the ballot. Compassion is on the ballot. Decency, science, democracy.
Yeah.
They're all on the ballot. Who we are as a nation, what we stand for, and most importantly, who we want to be. That's all on the ballot. And the choice could not be more clear.